In today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint up 6 factions from the inner sphere using the Battletech Comstar Battle Level 2 set. Let's start with a quick unboxing. When you open the box, you'll get a pack of cards, and then inside it, you get a total of 6 mechs. All 6 are inner sphere mechs pre-clan invasion era. From these Alpha Strike cards in the box, you'll see you get the mongoose, the crab, the Lancelot, the guillotine, the flashman, and the Crockett. You also get double-sided pilot cards that you can use for Alpha Strike. The first mech we'll look at is the Lancelot, and this I'm going to use for House Kurita. I'm going to be painting it up as a Sword of Light mech, which is predominantly dark red with some black trim. Next is the Flashman, and I will be using this for House Steiner, the Lyrian Commonwealth. It will have the colors of the infamous Lyrian Guard, which is mainly dark blue, with 1/3 of it painted white. Next comes the Crab. This mech is going to be painted for House Davion, or the Federated Sons. It will have the camouflage green color of the Crucis Lancers. After that is the Crockett, an assault mech that I will be painting up for the Free Wolves League, or House Marik. It will take on the famous colors of the Marik militia, which is a purple with distinctive red and blue stripes running down the sides. Filling out the back half is the light mech mongoose, and this I'm going to use for House Liao, representing their Liao Guard, which is a green with blue trimming. The last faction will be using the guillotine, and that faction is Comstar. It will be painted in the distinctive white armor of the Comstar guards. Regardless of what faction you're painting, you'll want to prime everything black. You can either use an aerosol primer or an airbrush primer. Next, we're going to zenithal highlight the model. Use a white airbrush primer or a white aerosol primer and spray it all the way around on a 45-degree angle. This will create a nice bright canvas for the paints that come next and also create natural shadow on the bottom part of the models. After this, I will be focusing on all 6 factions individually, and I will timestamp them so you can jump ahead if you want to. The first faction will be House Kurita. I'll be painting this mech in the colors of the Swords of Light. These are the 3 Army Painter speed paints that I will be using. I'll be using Broadsword Silver Metallic Speed Paint and 1 or 2 drops of Speed Paint Medium so it's not so dark. Then I use a broad brush and I apply it onto all the weapons. Next, I use Slaughter Red Speed Paint, which is a nice dark red and it really suits this Kurita application. I apply it with the same broad brush and 1 good coat will do. It will settle into all the recesses, and what I really like about speed paint is that you don't have to line the panels afterwards. When the red is dry, apply Grim Black onto certain panels, and also I use the Grim Black in all the joint areas, for instance at the ankles, at the hips, at the shoulders, and also sometimes on the claws of the feet. I like to make them black just to give it a little bit of a contrast to the main color. For the next step, you have the option of using decals, but honestly these models are pretty small and just a convincing looking logo should be all you need. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use red and black acrylic paint and a small brush, and I'm going to freehand the Kurita logo onto this panel of the mech. I start with a bright red circle as round as I can get it, and then after that I outline it with black. For the dragon symbol, all you're going to do is use a fine tip brush and paint in with black an inverted letter S. To give the dragon a little bit more body, add a little bit of thickness at the bottom and a little bit of a protrusion up on top. Next, I'm going to be painting up the Flashman mech as a Lyrian Guard for the Lyrian Commonwealth, or House Steiner. For this, I'll be using these 4 speed paints. And just like the Kurita mech before this, I start with Broadsword Silver, slightly thinned down with medium, and I apply it onto all the weapons. The Lyrian Guard have a very distinctive color scheme with a white stripe that encompasses 1/3 of the right-hand side of the mechs. For this area, I'm going to be using Holy White Speed Paint and then just carefully applying it onto just that 1/3 side of this Flashman. Notice that I'm starting with the lighter colors, so if I do make a mistake, the darker colors would just cover over them. I use Hylord Blue for the dark rich blue of the Lyrian Guard, and this blue is going to go onto any area that I did not paint silver or holy white. I usually am more careful with the darker colors, because if I do overshoot or make a mistake, it will mess up the lighter colors that I had applied earlier on. Next, I switch to Grim Black, and like the Kurita model before this, I line all the joints like behind the knees and by the shoulder joints, and also as an accent color to some of the panels, not too many, just to give the model a few more points of interest outside of the blue and the white. If you want to freehand the Steiner logo like I am here, pick a large armor panel and then use deep blue and matte black. Apply a triangle for the bottom of the fist with deep blue, and then after that on the top, apply a rectangle for the top of the fist with deep blue. Once the paint has had a chance to dry, use the black to outline the shape of a fist on top of those simple shapes that you created earlier. Do your best, don't worry about the smallest details. These models are fairly small and the logo will suit this purpose. Next is House Davion, or the Federated Sons, and I'm going to be painting up this crab mech as a Crucis Lancer. And for this, I'm going to use silver, green, and black. Starting with Broadsword Silver Speed Paint, I apply this color onto all the weapons. For the dark green color of the Crucis Lancers, I'm going to be using Camel Cloak Speed Paint. It is a nice dark green and it really suits the scheme. The whole mech is basically painted in this green color, so generously apply it all over and just avoid the areas that you had painted silver earlier. Next, I switch to Grim Black Speed Paint and I apply this onto select panels on the mech just to give it a little bit of contrast. And then after that, I use the black on all the joints. This helps add some practical transition to a mech that's basically a monotone color. Next, let's freehand the iconic sword and sunburst insignia of the Federated Sons. I will be using these 4 acrylic paints. Starting with Demonic Yellow, I freehand a circle in the biggest armor panel that I can find on the mech, right here. Next, I switch to matte black acrylic paint and I paint a black border around that yellow circle. I also use the same black to create the handle of the sword. Switching to gunmetal metallic acrylics, I paint the blade and the hilt of the sword. I finish the insignia off with pure red acrylic paint and then just very carefully applying the streaks in a sunburst-like pattern all the way around, making the beams emanate out of the sword. Of course, you can do this with a decal, but they're expensive and it's actually more fun to do it freehand. Onward to the Marik Militia for House Marik or the Free Wolves League. I'm going to be painting up this Crockett in the signature purple, red, and blue scheme. Similar to the previous mechs, I start with broadsword silver on all the weapons. One of the reasons why I start with the silver is that it's one of the lighter colors and it's easy to touch up with the darker colors if I make a mistake. The predominant color for the Marik militia is a dark purple, and I find Hive Dweller purple to be a great speed paint color for this. Generously apply this purple onto all the areas that were not painted silver earlier. Army Painter speed paints and GW contrast paints work really well on mechs because they not only apply highlights as well as shadow, but it also lines all the panels for you, and it really cuts down on the work on these models. Similar to the previous models, I use Grim Black speed paint for all the joints on the mech and also just for a few panels to create accent. The Marik militia have a very distinctive paint scheme. They have a red stripe running down the right side of the mech and a blue stripe on the left. Starting with the red stripe, I use pure red acrylic paint, not speed paint, and then with a detailing brush, I very carefully freehand in straight lines, thick straight lines, that basically apply onto the individual panels in a way that it looks like a straight line going from the foot all the way up to the right shoulder. Using the same method, I continue that red line down the back right hand side of the mech from the shoulder back down to the back of the foot. For the left side of the mech, you're going to be using the same method except this time using electric blue acrylic paint, and just use the same method and brush stroke and apply a line from the foot of the left hand side of the mech all the way up to its shoulder and then continue down the back like before. For the purple bird symbol of House Marik, you're going to be using Grimoire Purple and some matte black speed paint. First, paint a black diamond onto a large panel on the mech, and that will set up the background for the insignia. Next, use Grimoire Purple and then freehand in the shape of the bird. You can achieve this by creating a right angle triangle on one side, a mirrored triangle on the other side, and then a broad triangle at the bottom. Onward to the Capellan Confederation, House Liao. Painting the colors of the Liao guard on this mongoose, I'm going to be using these colors. Starting with the light colors first, I use broadsword silver speed paint and paint all the weapons. The mongoose also has two head antennas. I paint those silver as well. To give this mech a different green from camo green, I'm going to be using orc skin. This is a much brighter green, but it works really well on this Liao mech. Now, the Liao guard have some blue on them, namely the arms and also the sides of the legs. So you'll want to be very careful when you're applying this green to keep those areas white. We will be putting blue in those areas. For the blue areas, I use Magic Blue Speed Paint. This is a brighter blue and it complements the brighter green on the rest of the mech. Next, I move the Grim Black Speed Paint, and like before, this goes on all the joints and then also on select panels on the mech to break it up, give it some accent color. Next, for the insignia for House Liao, I'm going to be using three colors for this: yellow, green, and black. Starting with Goblin Green acrylic paint, which is a nice bright green, I paint on a triangle, an inverted triangle, on a large panel on the mech. After that, I follow up with Demonic Yellow and I outline that triangle all the way around. After that, I freehand in the arm and the sword insignia for House Liao using matte black acrylic paint. Just apply straight lines to form the arm and then a curved line for the scimitar and then a little bit of a pommel underneath. For the enigmatic and devious faction Comstar, I will be painting up the Comstar guard heavy mech, the guillotine, using these three colors, the main color being holy white. I start with broadsword silver speed paint on all the Comstar guard weapons. Comstar's mechs all come in iconic white armor panels, and I find holy white to be a great color for these mechs. The reason why is that it looks a little bit weathered, and also it lines the panels on the mech very convincingly. Next, I use Grim Black Speed Paint, and as usual, I apply it onto all the joints between the knees and also the shoulders and the feet, the ankles. And then as far as panels, I am very sparing when I use this color. The reason why is that I do want this mech to appear very white. If you overdo the black on this scheme, it will look like a black and white mech, and you don't want that. You really want it to look like a white mech with just a little bit of black accent. Onward to the Comstar insignia, which again I'm going to be applying freehand. To do this, I'm going to use these three colors. Now I'm going to start with electric blue, and I'm going to paint a oval, an upward facing oval like this. Next, I use matte white acrylic paint, and I paint a border around that oval. Next, I use pure red acrylic paint, and then I paint one line downwards that's a little bit shorter than the second line. And then I paint some sunburst coming out of the center of the red. And then at the very end, I use some matte white to draw streaks of sunburst coming out from that red star. Next, for the visors of the mechs or anything that has glass, I use Void Shield Blue, a nice bright blue, and I apply it onto these areas of each mech. And this is where the cockpit will be, and also if there are any lit elements like lamps or so on, they also get this light blue. Not all the mech cockpits are obvious, so I'm just including this here in all the video frames so you can pinpoint exactly where these cockpits are. This is especially true on the crab mech. I had to look pretty close at the mech and also on pictures on the internet in order to find them, but they're in this location right here. Some mechs like the Crockett have multi-panel windows. For this, you'll want to use a detailing brush and then very carefully put the blue only in areas where there's glass. And then if there's a divider between the glass, try your best to not touch those areas with blue. If you do, no big deal, just stick the original color and just touch it up afterwards. Next, let's work on the bases. Use some black primer and brush it onto the surrounding rim of the bases just to clean them up. Next, use Darkwood Speed Paint or something similar like a dark brown, and then paint it on top of the bases, assuming that your bases are white. Usually, if you zenithal highlight, a lot of the overspray will go on the bases, so it's already white and it should accept the speed paint fairly readily. Next is something I like doing with all my mechs. I put names on them. Now I put just the name of the mech, not the specific model, so that you can use the mech for any of its different variants. For instance, this could be any Lancelot, not the LNC 25-2 or 25-3. You don't have to be that specific on these bases. When you apply these names with matte white, you'll have to have a steady hand and a little bit of practice. A small handwriting style does help as well. And you want to plan out, depending on how long the word is. For instance, Flashman is a lot more letters than Crab, and you'll have to plan out how much space you have. Also, another pro tip, put the name on the front facing of the mech, so it's not just an identifier, but it also helps you determine which side is front. If you want to dress up the bases a little bit more, use flocking material like this from Army Painter, and then apply some Elmer's glue or white glue randomly on splotches on the base, and then just put it in the flocking material and it will stick in place. You can always manipulate the flocking a little bit with a brush afterwards to give each one a random look. Protect your final work by applying gloss varnish followed by matte varnish. Here are some 360-degree views of all 6 factions painted for Battletech. I chose these color schemes and these regimens because they tend to be the most popular for each faction, but honestly, the Battletech universe is huge and you can paint them really however you want. And I'm hoping that the theories and concepts that I use in this video will be applicable to any Battletech mech that you work on. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that this was helpful for you. Till the next time around, happy hobbying, and I will see you soon.